This week, Colorado became the first state to issue special licenses to businesses that will begin selling recreational marijuana on January 1st. Joining me now from Denver, Colorado is Mason Tvert, who is Director of Communications for the Marijuana Policy Project, who helped run the campaign for Colorado's marijuana initiatives. Nice to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so talk to me. What is the key change that occurs at the new year in terms of the purchase and sale of marijuana in Colorado?
Well, essentially, all that's really going to happen here is that Coloradans who have been buying marijuana for years will now have the ability to buy it from licensed, legitimate tax-paying businesses instead of from the underground market, where it would otherwise be benefiting cartels and other criminal enterprises, and the state will be generating tens of millions of dollars in revenue that otherwise would have gone into the underground market. So Mason, it's really a step forward.
Yeah. So Mason, I want to break out those two and think about them a little bit. So first, talk to me about the importance of this, simply from that first part of what you were talking about, the kind of legal reform, war on drug kind of crimes perspective. How much does this change that in the state of Colorado?
Well, this is essentially going to eliminate the underground marijuana market for adult use. Basically, we're going to have retail marijuana stores that are open and available to people. They simply have to show proof of age in order to make a purchase. And in doing so, they will not have to go to the underground market where they might be exposed to other illegal drugs, and they won't be giving their money to criminals.
And how important is this from a kind of local economic impact perspective? How much does Colorado expect to benefit from this?
According to the state's legislative council, this is supposed to generate upwards of $70 million annually just in this first year alone. And the first $40 million raised by one of the taxes that's been imposed is going to benefit the state's public school construction program. So that money that would otherwise be going into the underground market, going to cartels, will instead go back into the community.
Okay, so there is still a law being broken here, though, and that is the issue of federal law. So how much exposure do individuals who will now be operating legally, both as sellers and buyers in the state of Colorado, how much exposure do they have on the question of federal law?
Well, the federal government back in August, for the first time ever, made it clear that if businesses are following state regulations and state laws pertaining to marijuana sales and cultivation, they will not be interfered with. And this is a huge departure from previous policies at the Justice Department. So essentially, as long as the state has created sensible, strong regulations and these businesses are following them, the feds will stay out. And that's what Colorado has done, is create some very tight regulations that will essentially do what needs to be done, which is prevent sales to minors, prevent interstate trafficking, and so on.
So I want to ask one last question here, and that's really around the politics of this. We have seen a massive increase in the number of Americans in general who believe that marijuana ought to be legal, ought to be sort of closer to the model that Colorado now has. Do you see a sort of partisan divide at all in Colorado around these questions of legalization?
Well, you know, traditionally Democrats have been more supportive of ending marijuana prohibition than Republicans, but increasingly we're seeing support grow for marijuana policy reform among conservatives, of course among independents as well. You know, people just recognize that marijuana is not as harmful as they were once led to believe. In fact, it's objectively far less harmful than alcohol, and more people want to see it treated that way.
Mason Tvert in Denver this morning. I know there's a lot of nerds who are claiming they're going to, that's my producers here, claiming they're going to go to Colorado for the New Year's Eve. Thanks for joining us this evening. And up next,